Hi, I'm Dr. Veronica Johnson, and as I've mentioned in the past, I'm not the kind of doctor that's helpful in the sense of I'm not a medical doctor and I can't give you advice regarding medical conditions. However, I can speak to anxiety and fear. And as we are moving toward opening up our communities once again, I think this is something that we need to talk about. Because anytime we've avoided something that has us concerned, we actually increase our anxieties. And as a country, we have been avoiding exposure to a particular disease. I think it gets enough press, so I'm not even going to mention its name. But then our anxiety actually compels us to avoid it more and get further away from it. So, in general, to reduce anxiety, we actually have to approach what we're anxious about. We're doing opposite of what we are compelled to do, which is to avoid. Think about the fears of speaking in public. You actually have to do it in order to reduce the fear. The more you do it, the more you get used to it, the less anxious we get, typically. So, opening our communities means that we're going to be approaching things that we have been avoiding for a few months now. So, shopping, seeing more people in person, attending church, being with unknown people at restaurants, and sitting next to people at work. So, I want to give you some tricks on how to keep our anxiety as low as possible. So, the first trick is to breathe. So, I went to a long bout of school to get a doctorate, and I can summarize it here for you. You don't have to go to get your doctorate in psychology. All you need to know is you need to breathe. Everything gets better at with breathing. Um, they've done a lot of research on this, and just about every problem, from chronic pain to depression and anxiety, it all gets better when you breathe. So this is how brilliant the doctors in our country are, because we all know you need to breathe. So breathing does help us to face our fears. It reduces our anxiety, and it's got to be the kind of breathing that expands your lungs. So it feels good to breathe like this. And what I want you to do is, when you notice yourself starting to amp up or getting nervous about doing something as you approach it, just start breathing, and you'll find that your body actually kind of kicks in to where it becomes almost an automatic response. When you are anxious, you start to breathe deeply, and that's what we want. Okay, this next trick. So the first trick is to breathe. The second trick, you're gonna need a paper and pen. I don't need it because I've done this, but get a paper and a pen. I'll wait for you. So that's as long as I'm going to wait. But go ahead and get a paper and a pen. Draw out a line from 1 to 10. Go ahead and label 1 as almost certain safety, and then label 10 almost certain death. All right? In a minute, I'll have you pause me and write out some activities, behaviors, some events on this continuum, on this line, based on where they fall in terms of almost certain safety and almost certain death. For example, my kids thought playing with a cobra would be a good 10. And I thought that, sleeping at home with our doors locked would be a good 1. Now, I say almost certain safety because there's risk in everything. We live in a broken world. And I say almost certain death because there are safety measures in many things, and you never know what rescue might come. Almost nothing is certain in this world, except death and taxes. Someone famous said that somewhere. But for this exercise, we're going to go with almost certain safety and almost certain death. So here's the chance to pause me. And this is a gift. My family would love to have that ability. So go ahead and pause me and think of some activities, some behaviors, some things that you have to do or go to related to opening up our communities and re-entering life and relationships. And put them on the line. Based on what you know, what would be closer to almost certain safety and what would be closer to almost certain death? Okay, so for real now, you can go ahead and pause. So in general, we avoid 10s in life. That's okay. That's built into us. We like life. Life is good. God created us to live. We also tend to limit the ones because it's almost impossible to live a full life in ones. I had a friend who would joke that she wanted to wrap her kids in bubble wrap. That would be living life in one, which isn't really living. Of course, unless they suffocate into the plastic, in which case it really wouldn't be a one anymore. It'd be much further up the scale. But neither here nor there. In general, as we stay below 5, our hope is that there's more chance of experiencing comfort and peace, less fear. And as we hit 5 and above, we enter a zone that increases, quite frankly, the likelihood of pain, not just death, but pain. And this is just speaking in general. We can go skiing, which is quite a terrifying thing for some, and not experience a lot of pain, but it would be on that upper end of the scale, certainly 5 and above. So in our minds, we tend to associate pain with bad. And sometimes we start to avoid that 6 to 9 zone instead of just avoiding 10s, almost certain death, right? We get further and further away from the 10. In this event, we've had to not only avoid 6 through 9, we've had to avoid things that are generally associated with the 1 to 5 section. Going to church, generally a safe practice, is now something that we've avoided a few months. So going to the park, going grocery shopping, going to work, these activities have become 9 and 10s just by virtue of the situation at hand. The problem is when we make 8 into the new 10, our continuum shrinks. And then we begin to see 8 as almost certain death, and we start avoiding 7 just to be safe. We then we've been behaving, because we've had to, as though 3s and 4s are 10. Because of this, our lives have gotten smaller and smaller, and our fear can start to get bigger and bigger, even in our effort to live more safely. So the purpose of this line exercise is to help us remember that what we are doing is not likely to be a 10. It's to help you take steps forward and expand your life again, so there is a full continuum of 1 to, let's say, 9, because I don't want you to die. We want you to re-engage without overwhelming anxiety, living as though a 5 is almost certain death. That's where anxiety comes in. So going out again isn't likely to cause almost certain death. Although, quite frankly, the campaigns that say stay at home, save a life, really are good at making it sound like that. The line helps us rate the risk in a more objective fashion. And then we can make decisions based on measured risk. Remember, we cannot achieve certain safety. We're always measuring risk. There's always measured risk, which brings me to my next point. So, number 3. We want to focus on the facts. So first we want to breathe. Second, we really want to get more objective and start expanding our life intentionally based on measured risk. Well, how do we measure that risk? One way is to focus on the facts. So I heard a report a couple weeks ago on a radio station, and the reporter said, and I'm going to get these numbers wrong because I didn't double check them, but at the time it was something like 60 out of 64 counties in Colorado have reported confirmed cases of this particular disease. And I thought that was an interesting angle, as it was pointing to the fact, so you would hear most in this particular fact. Most. And I thought it was interesting. He didn't point out that by and large, most people don't have this particular disease. So you've got to do some digging. You can't just rely on the media, who have their own angle, and you can't rely on social media, which is a different situation, which maybe that's another vlog coming up. You've got to do some digging to find the most solid facts that you can, facts that ground our emotions. Facts actually help to regulate anxiety. One fact I have found helpful through this time was finding out how many confirmed cases there were in my particular county and divide that number by the total number of people living in the county. This number gives you way more information to consider the risks that you decide to take. So at the time I looked at the numbers, which has been probably about 2 weeks ago, it was 0.0019% of the individuals in my county had confirmed cases of this particular disease. This means that I'm 0.0019% likely to bump into one of these individuals in my day-to-day life, and even less likely am I to bump into them in such a way that I contract the virus. So that really helped me make some decisions. And it helped to regulate any anxiety I felt about leaving home, kind of expanding into my normal life again. And I think these facts will help you determine where on the line certain activities might fall. So in the end, I believe these three things, breathing, measuring your risk on the 1 to 10 scale, and focusing on some really good facts, will help you re-enter life again with confidence and peace. I'll see you next time.